Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Nerdy Multiverse and finally another video. It has been years ever since we have seen anything within the universe of the Planet of the Apes. After the final movie in Caesar's incredible and beautiful trilogy, and after the success of those 3 films and them being regarded as some of the best movies of modern day, especially when regarding trilogies, even for me, as I personally have that trilogy right next to The Lord of the Rings as my 2 favorite trilogies of all time. Now, it was only a matter of time before the story was continued, even after the passing of Caesar in war, after he saved his entire species and brought them to a brand new home. And now, after several generations have passed, the story continues in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. A continuation in a way, but more of a beginning to a brand new story within this world, and one that follows that of Noah. I have just gotten out from seeing the movie myself, and man, do I have a lot to talk about. Planet of the Apes has always been one of my all-time favorite pieces of media, and this movie did not disappoint one bit. So let's dive into it. Obviously, this video will contain spoilers for the movie, so you have been warned. Now, first off, I want to start by touching on each of the more major characters and their stories and their development, and of course their impact that they had throughout this movie. Now, obviously, when the trailers first came out, we got to see the main character of this movie for the very first time. At first, a lot of people did think that this would be Cornelius. However, it is Noah, a completely different ape. However, if you do look closely at his design, it almost looks like he has a similar mark to that of Caesar's birthmark. Now, it's not confirmed or even brought up in the movie whether Noah is a direct descendant or not, but I do think that it is quite possible now. But as for Noah's character itself, I absolutely loved him. He reminded me so much of the younger version of Caesar from Rise of the Planet of the Apes, growing up and maturing as the world around him changes, and as he is introduced to darker and grimmer aspects of the world, he himself starts to change. And just like Caesar, Noah becomes a great leader and savior for his species and his tribe, known as the Eagle Tribe, which, by the way, I thought the idea of having the apes use eagles as companions was awesome, especially that very last scene where they rose up against Proximus Caesar. And speaking of Proximus Caesar, he was the main antagonist of this movie. Now again, each of these characters remind me of characters from Caesar's trilogy, as Proximus sort of reminded me of Koba in a way, although Proximus was more successful in his run, but then again, he was not as intimidating or evil as Koba was seen. And you could say that in the end, Proximus had a point in what he was saying. He was just too executing it all in the wrong way, and while doing so, disrupting Caesar's teachings. Proximus himself was also a great character, and of course, a very charismatic villain as well. And he honestly stole most of the scenes that he was a part of. I really enjoyed the aspect of him studying Roman history and standing up as a sort of king or emperor for the apes. But by doing that, he used Caesar's name as leverage and reason. But the entire time, he was actually shaming Caesar's name and not going by what he stood for. It was almost like he did things for Caesar, quote unquote, but he did them the way that Koba would have done them. A great antagonist that I have a feeling we could get more of, as we know no bodies that are seen means the character could be alive, as we all know from any piece of media in history. But I do wish we got just a little bit more screen time from him. Now, in the Caesar trilogy, we of course had super iconic characters like Caesar himself and Koba, but there was also Maurice. And in this movie, we are introduced to to another orangutan by the name of Rocka. Again, this character reminded me of the counterpart from Caesar's trilogy, Maurice, and his morals and intelligence as well. He was a great mentor for Noah in this movie, just as Maurice was for Caesar in the previous trilogy. The same thing I said about Proximus, however, as I do wish that Rocka had more screen time as well. Although I believe and I am almost certain that we will be seeing him again, as there was the sound of an orangutan at the end of the credits. But while he was on screen, he really brought that legacy of Caesar's into light and made it such a huge part of this story and the movie, as he taught Noah who Caesar was and what he truly stood for. He was the reason that all of these apes are able to walk the earth, no longer in cages. And when it comes to humans within this universe, there has always been that presence of some humans, but always a major human character that are either the main antagonist or a supporter of the apes, or sometimes even a bit of both. However, in Kingdom, the major human character is referred to as Echo by Noah, up until she reveals her name to be May. And her story was also pretty interesting. She started off as someone that we all thought was just trying to survive, and an example of how humans are nowadays in this world, losing their intelligence and their speech and much, much more. Throughout the movie, you never really know where her loyalties lie. However, it all does take a turn as she does randomly start speaking in the middle of the movie and in a perfect manner. And at first, it seems like she's there to help the apes against the bad apes, but it all turns out that she did it for the humans, as they are looking for a way to return back to the old days, controlling the planet and likely having the apes back in cages. That is, if they don't try to wipe them out completely. So with that, it really does show that in a way, Proximus Caesar was right throughout the film. Humans cannot be trusted anymore. I feel like they could very well be the villains once again in the next movie in this new trilogy. This movie was a great example and way to tell a story of how myth and history can either empower or completely destroy a culture and their views, but also how there is always that line of hope that it will be sorted. But overall, in my opinion, this movie was absolutely incredible. Now, if I'm going to be honest, I was a little worried going into it, as I was afraid that something would get messed up or that they wouldn't even acknowledge Caesar's legacy at all. But the movie literally kicks off with such an emotional scene with Caesar's funeral, being the very last time that we see him and characters such as Rocket and Maurice, as we head into this new generation that will likely be its own trilogy, with another trilogy likely to follow this one, as they have now confirmed 5 more movies. So in total, it would be 9 movies in this modern Planet of the Apes. Now, this movie didn't have many action sequences compared to the other ones, and yet it was still so entertaining. The writing and storytelling has always been above and beyond for Planet of the Apes, and this movie really continues that. I loved the internal and external conflict in this one, and the visuals were all great as well. I was pleasantly surprised with this movie, and it really did exceed my expectations. And I walked out of the theater ready to rewatch all of the previous movies. It was a bit different compared to that of Caesar's movies, but that is what we need. We need something different and something new, as we can't always have the same things or else it will get old and repetitive, as much as I love Caesar. Now, this one was more of a coming of age story, and yet it still had those aspects from Caesar's trilogy. It will be hard to fill those shoes, but I truly think that we are headed in the right direction after seeing Kingdom myself. I mean, this movie has brought so much attention back into the franchise and the fandom that the openings for this movie have even surpassed that of any previous Planet of the Apes. And with all of that, I am so excited for the future of this franchise. I also wanted to say huge round of applause to the cast and crew. Being able to make these types of movies like this work is extremely hard, and the actors are so talented, pulling off the amount of emotion action that was in this movie while playing that of a chimpanzee is absolutely insane. Super talented, just as the cast was for the last trilogy. I mean, this movie even had some good comedic moments. I always wondered what it would be like to hear the apes learn to swear, and we finally got to hear that in this one, which was pretty funny. All in all though, this movie was absolutely amazing in my opinion. It had great action when there was action, it also had great characters, storytelling, world building, and extremely emotional scenes, making you shed tears at the very start of the movie. The callbacks and the respect towards those previous movies really did it for me as well. I absolutely loved just how much they paid respect to Caesar and his ways. His character will truly live on forever. This was also a great beginning to a brand new story that I am beyond hyped to see continue. So this movie was easily a 9 out of 10 for me. The only thing that I wish that we got more of was screen time for certain characters such as Proximus Caesar. Otherwise, in my opinion, it was as perfect as it possibly could have been. All around a beautifully made movie. And if you are a fan of Planet of the Apes, this is a must watch. And I'm almost certain you will not be disappointed with it. But I think that is about it for this movie, from me at least. But of course, I would also like to hear your thoughts on the movie Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes as well. So make sure to leave them down below. Thank you all for watching, and if you enjoyed our review, do not forget to give it a like. And with that being said, we will see you all the next time that we go through and explore the nerdy multiverse.